Hello, this is Dr. Gerhauser, and I would like to ask you what could be the most important question of your life. Do you think it's possible to actually rebuild your health, get rid of fatigue, and prevent almost all diseases once and for all? By the end of this three-part webinar, I'll tell you about the most important medical discovery of all time, which so far has been kept a secret. I'm so convinced that this program will radically improve your health and life. I'll show you how to gain free access to the entire program at the end of this webinar. Now, this program won't give you artificial energy and have you squandering your vitality with caffeine, energy drinks, exercise, or stimulants, or even worse, use drugs that might suppress symptoms for a while. But all drugs have side effects, and more importantly, they leave the cause for your problem smoldering in place. I'll show you how you can reverse all the damage and rebuild your body and mind. Now, this little-known secret supercharges your health and well-being. It supports graceful aging. It nourishes prevention and the healing of chronic diseases. It even enables you to live longer. Now, what if you could trade your present body for a much healthier one? Just like when you trade your old car for a newer and better model. Imagine how much better your life would be if that happened. Now, also imagine how many health problems you'd avoid, and how fast your supercharged immunity would allow diseases to disappear from your body, and how much more energy you'd have, how vibrant and alive you'd feel, and how many more years you'd add to your lifespan. Now, if this sounds like a fantasy, I don't blame you, but I ask that you suspend your disbelief until you've listened to the entire story. You'll be amazed, intrigued, and fascinated by the extraordinary information you're about to discover. But first, let me ask you a question, or actually a series of questions. Now, which of the following best describes you? See if any of these apply to you. Number one, you're someone who's been living an unhealthy lifestyle and you want to start over with a clean slate. You want to erase the ghost of your body's past and usher in a new, healthier you. Or number two, you suffer from a chronic or degenerative disease and are seeking complete health restoration. Or number three, you're seeing and feeling the symptoms of getting older, such as aches and pains, debilitating diseases, wrinkles and saggy skin, loss of vitality, poor memory, and you want to regain your lost youth and look better and feel young again. Or number four, you're someone in fairly good health and wants to maximize your health and well-being, slow down the aging process, and live a long, healthy life. Well, if one or more of those four statements apply to you, this will be the most exciting information you'll ever encounter. Now, first off, I want to give you the evidence that almost all of us are seriously damaged as far as our physical and mental emotional health. But in the end, as I said, there's great news, and there's a way to reverse the damage and rebuild your health. Now, before we go any further, you're probably asking yourself, why should I listen to this guy? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. Now, I'm an MD that's board certified in preventive medicine and as a physician nutrition specialist. I have master's degrees in public health and also in exercise physiology. I'm a fellow of the American College of Preventive Medicine and the American College of Sports Medicine. I've been appointed to the faculty of the University of Arizona Medical School, where I serve as a clinical assistant professor. For over 12 years, I was one of the team of physicians that transformed Canyon Ranch into one of the world's leaders in integrative medicine. I have published research in preventive medicine, and I've been a co-investigator in many research studies. I've lectured internationally on integrative integrative medicine medical topics. And my team and I are spreading the word about preventive medicine through YouTube on our channel, The Natural Foods Diet. And this has thousands of subscribers. Now, despite all these credentials and my experience, I still had it wrong. And that's what I want to talk about. Yes, I was the cover child for preventive medicine. I ate a good diet. I exercised without fail. I took pride in the fact that I didn't need any nutritional supplements, and I wasn't on any drugs, and I did appear to be more healthy or healthier than the average person that was my age. But when I reached my 50s, I began to see some problems creeping up. I was getting repeated gout attacks, I had fatigue, I was getting varicose veins, and these were definite signs that I was aging, and it wasn't pretty. So the great and wise integrative medical doctor develops fatigue and other signs of aging. Thought to myself, maybe I wasn't so smart after all. So my solution? Well, I'll ramp up the exercise. This is what the anti-aging docs advise. And they also advise adding some testosterone and thyroid hormone and some other assorted hormones. Now, surely that was the answer to fatigue and aging. Well, after 6 months after this program of ramped up exercise and adding hormones, my fatigue was to the point where I would do some yard work and need to sleep for 4 hours. If I would hike up a hill, like I did when I did the rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon hike, I'd get chest pain. But even scarier, the chest pain got worse during the hardest physical exertion. And it's best described as if an elephant was sitting on my chest. Okay, well, maybe not an elephant, but definitely something bigger than a cat. Now, I told you that I'm a physician, and yes, I was deeply in denial. Hey, but I bought into the myth that a lifelong exerciser can't get cardiac disease, which we all know now is wrong. Now, I knew I was at risk for sudden death. Actually, I've had firsthand experience with sudden death of supposedly healthy endurance athletes. But also because I'm a physician, I knew the ridiculous regimen a patient is put through when presenting to a cardiologist with chest pain. Now, first, if I presented to a cardiologist, would be the rarely useful, for the patient that is, but highly toxic nuclear stress test, which would probably lead to the usually useless, for the patient that is, angiogram, which leads to the usually useless, again for the patient, stenting, or the much more invasive but just as useless, for the patient that is, bypass surgery. You see, most of these tests and procedures haven't been shown to improve mortality. That might astound you. But the reason I say the tests are useless for the patient is this. But the tests do have some benefit, and that's for the doctor, to the tune of $60 billion a year spent for invasive cardiac procedures. The cardiologist Michael Osner, in his book, The Great American Heart Hoax, states that 70 to 90% of these procedures are, at best, unnecessary. Now, I'm not saying I don't respect the fact that cardiologists can save lives. And yes, if I get a massive MI, I want a good cardiologist to try to save me, although he may not want to. But most of what the typical cardiologist does, and many other specialists as well, is to perform mostly unneeded procedures that are part of an algorithm that was designed by the same highly paid specialists that want to keep their incomes up. So you can see how this is flawed. But let me get back to my story. So with this sudden fatigue and chest pain, I ran the usual and unusual panels of tests on blood, urine, and even saliva, like I've done countless times on my patients. You see, I was in a practice that treated the elite of society, and among my patients were CEOs of major corporations, major movie stars, heads of state, and even royalty. Now with these patients, price is no object when we're doing a workup. But like when evaluating fatigue in most of my patients, the cause for fatigue usually isn't detected. In fact, the tests I did on myself looked good and the hormone levels were relatively normal. Well, maybe it was just time for me to face reality that our bodies age and we die. Or an alternative, I could eat crow and go see the cardiologist and get the workup and probably get on a bunch of drugs. Now, statistically, I wouldn't live any longer and my quality of life would be lower from the side effect of the drugs and the expense of them. But I would be then doing what my medical brainwashing, training would advise me to do. Not bad, I'm a doctor. Well, maybe it was fate, but more likely it was the fact that I had been investigating the nooks and crannies of alternative medicine for over 25 years. And I was directed to a test that wasn't developed to diagnose disease, but was used to detect imbalances. I did the test, and let me tell you, it hit the nail on the head. I had a severe imbalance that was probably leading to some catastrophic event that my intuition and chest pain was warning me about. The remedy that was prescribed was based on this test that I discovered, and I will explain it later in great detail. But let me just tell you, my chest pain resolved. Even when I climbed up a steep hill, my energy came back. I was much calmer and happier, and I noticed I had much better focus and retention mentally. My gout symptoms disappeared. Even the varicose veins are continuing to improve. And I did this all without spending a darn dime on a cardiologist. In fact, I'm certain this program saved my life. Right now, I'd like to take a few minutes to give you the statistics that prove we're in trouble. Yes, you need to know that modern medicine is losing the war against chronic diseases. According to the Centers for Disease Control, chronic diseases now are responsible for 7 out of every 10 deaths in the United States and affect 1 out of every 2 people. The chronic diseases include obesity, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, heart disease, stroke, autoimmune diseases, and many more. Chronic disease is usually combined with the most common disorder I see every single day in my clinic: fatigue. In addition, more and more infectious diseases are becoming resistant to antibiotics. And the cause of these conditions isn't hard to figure out. Even mainstream medical publications state that 70 to 90% of chronic diseases are preventable. With me having over 30 years of practicing medicine under my belt, I can tell you with absolute certainty that one of the best ways to get started down the path to disability and disease is to listen to your doctor. The United States has one of the most absurd and dangerous systems in place that could ever be imagined. Modern medicine, and often even holistic and homeopathic medicine, are designed to suppress symptoms with a drug, a procedure, an herb, or sometimes even a nutritional supplements. Now at times, because our bodies do have this miraculous ability to heal, suppressing symptoms may seem to be effective because we tend to get better as long as our natural healing mechanisms are unhampered and the needed raw materials are present. You may not know this, but it appears that our healthcare system and our doctors are actually hazardous to our health. An independent team of healthcare professionals using published research found that doctors in allopathic healthcare cause an estimated 800,000 deaths a year in the United States. And that would make that the leading cause of death. The United States healthcare system is actually the worst of the worst. It's not only dangerous, it's also the most expensive in the world, slurping up well over $2.5 trillion a year. More is spent on healthcare in the USA than all of the other countries of the earth combined. So that means that 4.5% of the population spends more healthcare dollars than the other 95.5%. So that must mean that people in the United States have hogged up all the health, right? Wrong. The United States is ranked 33rd in life expectancy, and it has the worst infant mortality rate of the 14 richest nations in the world. The United States actually ranks poorly in almost all health categories. So there you have it. We have an outrageously expensive and ineffective healthcare system. Now, as I see it, a big factor in our poor rating is our doctors' reliance on drugs and surgeries for treatment, rather than looking for the root cause of a problem. Now, why do you suppose that our healthcare system is such a failure with these poor outcomes and runaway costs? Could part of the reason be that the average doctor has many loyalties that come before you, the patient? Now, her first loyalty must be to the state licensing boards. This board has the power to remove the provider's license to practice. What's the criteria used to revoke a license? Is it bad outcomes? Well, that's not really a problem as long as you follow the standard of care. And with 800,000 people a year being killed by their doctor, there's a heck of a lot of bad outcomes. So this isn't likely to get you in trouble. But what if a physician tries something innovative? Regardless of the patient's outcome, they'll be at risk for being shut down. A great example of this is portrayed in the movie Brzezinski. Watch this film if you want to see how the state medical boards operate and how persistent they can be despite a physician having great patient outcomes for a safe and effective alternative cancer treatment. Now, your doctor's next loyalty is to his malpractice insurance company and malpractice attorneys. Now, with all these dead bodies lying around, doctors get sued a lot. In fact, the average doctor faces a malpractice lawsuit every 7 years of practice. These lawsuits take up a lot of time and energy and a lot of money. The focus on the inevitable lawsuit causes the practice of defensive medicine, and that's do everything and run every test just in case. Now, this is a very dangerous and expensive way to practice medicine, for the patient, that is. It can actually be quite lucrative for the doctor because of all the tests and procedures. Now, the fear of lawsuits also leads to lying by physicians because no one wants to be sued, and it's normal to lie in order to avoid extreme pain. Now, the next loyalty of your doctor is to the health insurance company. This is the entity that pays the medical bill. And these companies have their own treatment algorithms and quality rules that if the doctor doesn't follow them, then he or she can get paid less, not at all, or even get banned from the plan. Now, the government is the next loyalty. The government's written thousands of pages of rules and regulations that the doctor must follow. If your doctor breaks the rules, it might constitute fraud or some other criminal offense, which can lead to expensive fines and even jail time. Now, doctors have loyalties to the drug and device companies because they're given incentives and other bribes. Doctors are actually sometimes bribed to look the other way or accept biased and even fake studies that are done by the drug companies and even the learning institutions. Now, in addition, many doctors have an air of arrogance that's created by the medical establishment manipulating a physician shortage by limiting the number of physicians trained and then by lobbying for laws to ban all alternative types of healing. This monopoly has led to greed and ethical laxity. You can see that the patient might be the last thing on your doctor's mind, and this is a scary thought indeed. Now, I want you to know I'm not wholly blaming doctors, and I'm not saying that doctors are bad people. They are trapped in a fatally flawed system. I know firsthand the pressure I face as a physician. I also know that I can't help my patients if I lose my license to practice or if I get banned from the insurance plans. And luckily, in 30 years of practice, I haven't been sued yet. And I don't want to lose too much weight, you know, if I miss all those drug rep meals. Just kidding on that one. So I hope you're excited to find out the best answer to achieve the vitality and health you deserve. In the next section, I will go through the other causes of our chronic disease and fatigue epidemics and give you the answer for the problem once and for all. This is Dr. G with naturalfoodsdiet.org, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.